into when I fill in the blank. And the idea is you seemingly sign the dotted line to some event in your life, thinking, right, this will be done fairly quickly. I didn't know what I was getting into when I signed the deed on my house. I didn't know what I was getting into when I voted for Brexit. I didn't know what I was getting into, but man, has it turned out to be tedious. Man, has it turned out to be something that I have to continue to work on day after day after day. I didn't know it was going to be like this. I didn't know I was going to have to continue in this a long time. In fact, I would love to take the escape clause on this one. It's just been so much hard work. It's been so difficult. And today we're talking about I didn't know what I would get into when I decided to follow Jesus. We're on this journey of faith, and there was a day probably where we were fairly excited to live for the Lord. When we met Him, to know that we were now going to be with Jesus, and that meant heaven, and that meant we were right with God, which made us feel tremendous. But there has been 1,000 battles since then, and many of us are very tired. And how is it that we can make it? You've seen the picture, famous cartoon, I think it was from World War I, where you've got the young recruit is just about to hit the front lines. And as he's going to the front lines, he runs into his cousin who's been there for 6 months. And he says, "Bob, it's great to see you," and Bob just looks like, "Kid, you have no idea what's coming." He's just exhausted. And perhaps we're exhausted. We're fatigued. It just keeps coming. And what does God's Word say about that? And this is what this morning's story is about. David, there are still giants. There are still giants. And you're tired. How are you going to make it? I hope that's not my phone. No, somebody else's. How are we going to make it? And what we learn here is that life is a battle, but our faith will preserve us. Life is a battle, but our faith will preserve us. Let's first notice how God preserves those who trust Him even in their weakness. So let's go ahead and turn to 2 Samuel 21 is where we're at. 2 Samuel 21, it's in the first half of the Old Testament. You'll find it on page, as I turn, 327. And we're just going to read verses 15 and 16. Oh, yes, that's the next page, 328. Once again, there was battle between the Philistines and Israel. David went down with his men to fight against the Philistines, and he became exhausted. So there's a word that's repeated 4 times in this section, and the word is again. Again the Philistines come. Again they come. And again, and even yet again. It's not like someone is sending them a text inviting them to come by. They are just coming. They are relentless, and they're trying to wear down their opponent. That's why they come so often. And actually the culture that they come from, which is Mycenaean culture, their rule was, in summer, we have to attack this many times, period. Okay? Go get them, go get them, go get them. We're attacking. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Keep at them until they give. Like a football match, let's say that somebody's outmatched, like a certain team from, fairly close to here yesterday, right? They just keep at it. Keep in the box, keep in the box, keep in the box until someone says, "Oh, this is tiring." Boom, there's the goal. They just keep going, and it's wearing them down. And God says, every Christian is at war. We're at war. Now that's unpopular, isn't it? We're kind of removed from our, removed from anything resembling war. We're in kind of this cushy Christian environment, and we might think that the goal of life is to be relatively comfortable and successful. And Christianity helps me do that. It helps smooth my life over. And yes, Christianity does help smooth one's life over. That's true, actually. But that's not the goal of our lives. The goal of our life is to hold on to faith in Jesus. The goal of your life is to remain with Christ. Those are Christ's words. Remain with me. Abide with me. Hold on to faith in me. This is what you're here for as you live. And Paul says, all who desire to live uprightly in this world will have trouble. They will have trouble because we have an adversary who's pushing against us, who says, no, just stop being so serious about God. No, just stop being serious about Jesus. No, just stop being one of those weirdo Christians that go crazy and are too extreme with their views. Just give it up. And he knows our weaknesses better than we know our weaknesses. He has giants, okay? He has giants. Now, when it says giants, we're not to think like Gulliver's Travels here, okay? This isn't fairy tale stuff. The Bible is actually a real book. These things really happened, and we're talking about somebody who's 7 feet tall. They give us the height of this person. So the giant is 7 feet tall, and that makes a difference when you're 4.5 feet tall, which is the average size of the Israelites during this day and age. Okay, that's a very large person if you're 4.5 feet tall. You know what it says here, Rapha, just so everybody knows. Rapha is just kind of a technical term for what these Philistines were doing. They were breeding the largest people they could find. So all the people who were tall, they put them in a group, said, get friendly with one another, and then their kids only married their kids, and they're hoping to get the largest person they can, which, by the way, is why one of the giants has 6 fingers. It's that genetic mutation there. So this is a real story about really tall people who are too big and too exhausting for David to face. It says here that David is exhausted. I was thinking about politicians, right? The day that they enter office, they always get a picture of them, and they're like, yeah, I'm here to do some good, right? And then they get a picture at the last day of office, right? And like half their head is missing the hair that it once had, and they've got like 40 more crinkles all over their body, and they're like, just get me out of here, right? This is how David is feeling. And it's not just that he is physically weak, he's spiritually weak. It's been a rough kingship for David. He's made some poor decisions, and it turns out that they had bigger consequences than he thought. And he's just in a lot of pain about this, and life has not been easy for him. And now out comes, in his moment of great weakness, the adversary comes with kryptonite, you know. He knows exactly how to take someone down. So, is David's faith going to stand? Is David going to be okay? Normally this is a open shut case. David is going to be killed. There's a man, he wants to kill David, he's a giant. By the way, he's only half as strong as Goliath was, but it doesn't matter at this point. David's tired. So is that it for him? The answer is no. Because God preserves us. He preserves us. He preserves our faith. Let's turn to Philippians 1:6 really quickly and take in this principle that God wants to show us. Philippians 1:6. So this is the other side of the Bible. And it's before like Hebrews and Timothy's and after Corinthians. Okay, it'll be page 1178. Paul says, I am confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. So, God is for us, and he will complete the work he starts in us. Do you have faith? That's like God starting a project that he's not willing to stop working on. And so that's what's going to carry the day. God's constant caring for David. God's constant caring for you. How will you make it through with what's coming? We tend to think, oh, I can do it because I'm amazing. And the answer is no, you can't do it. You you are certainly going to fail. But God is faithful. He who began a good work in you will complete it. Even in our deep weakness, he preserves us. He's as constant as the clicking, the tick of a clock, right? 60 per second, unless it's our clock here that doesn't move much at all. But it's constant. It still keeps time very well. God is constant for us in just that way. Look at what happens here, verse 17. But Abishai, and this is 3:28 again of 2 Samuel. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue. He struck the Philistine down and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, saying, "Never again will you go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished." So, lucky David, right? As he's fighting, it just happens that Abishai is right in the area, and Abishai decides to come to the rescue and saves him, but it's not luck, is it? Actually, this was planned before the foundation of the world. Before the foundation of the world, God determined that David's faith would stand, and he determined that in all of the passing of moments, it would come down to mere seconds, that David and Abishai would be close together, close enough that Abishai could see what's going on, and that he would come into the rescue and swoop in and save David in his weakness. This is the plan. And you are planned with the same amount of precision. Do you think that God doesn't know exactly what you will be doing and exactly where you're going in the next hour, in the next second? He's so precise, and he pulls it all together, and he's for you. So if that's the God that is for you, the God who has your life planned down to every little second, just to make sure you're okay. I remember once I was in a car, and they decided to go drag racing, okay? And I was not excited about this. Someone had just bought this new sports car, and so we were going down this road. It was a dirt road, and we're drag racing, going too fast, and this person was losing in their fancy sports car that they had just bought, which was not helping them very much. We got to the end of this dirt road, and there's a turn, and I said, "We need to stop the race right now. You've lost. Let's just stop." And he said, "No, I can still beat him on the pass." And I was like, "It's a blind pass here." And so we go around this corner, and as we go around the corner, there's a car coming. On the other side, it's about 40 feet ahead. And they jam their foot on the brake, and the car goes sideways, so there's no room on the road anymore at all. And we've got about 30 feet to go. And I start to think, am I about to die? And actually, a little voice said no. And he jammed his foot on the brake, and the car ended up spinning about 3 times in a row, just the right way, apparently, to make that car spin. And that spinning took all of the energy out of the speed, and we ended up hitting the back into their car very minorly. God is aware of these things. God knows exactly how much friction is in the tires. He knows. And so if he's for you, you're going to succeed. He is going to preserve your fate. And he's going to preserve your faith. The other day, I was looking through my diary. I have these diaries, and I start them for not long. I'm like, I'm going to keep a diary, and it lasts for about 3 months. But then I go back and I look at them, and then I give up for the year. Right? And I go back and I look at them, and what I realize is that I'm fighting all the same sins that I was fighting like 10 years ago, okay? There's nothing more demoralizing than realizing you don't seem to be getting too far in your advancement. God is able to give you victory over your lives. They are nothing to him. He can give you the victory. Not you. You can't give you the victory. God can. So what does David even do in this chapter? Someone tell me. Well, he's tired. He goes home, right? But the victory is his. Well, he did do one thing. What did he do? Show up. And that is really what we need to do ministry-wise. We need to be here. We need to show up. Just do something. Think about Saul, okay? Saul had Goliath too, and he was just than Goliath. Okay, he wasn't too much shorter. But he cowered away. He did nothing. Now David here, he doesn't have the strength to meet Goliath, but because he shows up, God gives him the victory. And that's what we need to do ministry too. Not to have all the right answers, not to read all the right books. And the very best times that I've shared the Lord, literally, here's how they start. I don't want to say anything. I'm scared. I want to go back home where it's easy, comfortable. Just open your mouth. And out of my mouth comes what God wants. The same is true for you. Just show up. Just show up. Now, lastly, in this little section, you'll notice that it says that the lamp of the Lord, they tell him, you're not going to fight anymore, that the lamp of the Lord will not be extinguished. It's a beautiful picture of the lamp of the Lord is the menorah. And I should have had a picture up here. The menorah in the temple. Let me tell you a little bit about the menorah. The menorah is this seven-palmed candlestick. And it has an oil reserve under each of the candles so that you can fill it at all times so that the fire will never go out. Ever. It just burns, 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 burns. Okay? And this was on purpose. God said of this menorah, it shall never, ever be extinguished, right? Keep it going. And this is one of the things that he says, this is like my presence for Israel. Okay? It's always going, like a fire that never goes out. So is my presence among you. So when they're saying, the fire might be quenched, they're saying, David, you're like God's avenue to talk to us. So if you die, then we won't be disconnected from God. Which is a fitting thing to say to someone who's going to produce the Messiah someday, their grandchildren. But it's a great picture of how God feels for you. God is always a blazing furnace of activity for you. Everything that you go through, as a believer in the Lord, every little thing, he is working it together for your good. He never ever stops. He's always thinking of you. And he always works together for an amazing result. God preserves our faith in weakness. And that should bring you incredible comfort with what you're in. I know you might think it's impossible, the situation I'm in. I can't make it. It's really tough. You don't understand. I don't understand, but I don't have to understand. I know that God understands, and actually he's more powerful, and he will preserve you. He will preserve you. So that's point number one. Second point is that our faith grows and multiplies into the lives of others, actually, and this brings success. So let's read, I'll just summarize verses 18 through 22. Basically, there are three more giants, and at this point, David is decommissioned. So he goes home, he puts his feet up, they told him he can't do battle, and then everyone goes out and starts acting like David acted. All his men. So there are three different men. One of them isn't Jewish, and they all go out, and they all have bravery, and they essentially do a repeat on David's story. So David dared to come up against these Philistines and to come up against these Goliaths, this one single Goliath, right? And he killed them. Now they all go do that too. Just like he did, they do that. So Elhanan hears the taunt of this six-fingered man and six-toed man, and he says, you can't say that. Not to the living God. He rises up and kills him. Well, that's what David did, you see. But notice there, at the end, it says that David and his men killed these four giants. Well, wait a minute. David didn't kill anybody. It was just four men. Why does he get credit? And the answer is because now they're beginning to reduplicate his faith. If you look back a couple chapters, well, actually, to the first book of 1 Samuel, you'll see that Saul is hiding, and so are all the men are running about away from this gigantic Goliath guy. And here, now everyone is picked up. They've noticed what David has done. They are his men, and they're replicating it. And this brings the victory. So that David essentially just goes and sits. The half of his life, what he does is he's trained somebody else to be like him, to have the faith that he had, and then they rise up and they do the business. And so it's really important for us to reduplicate our faith, isn't it? To pass on our faith. It's really good for you to come to church and to be fed by God's word. But also to say, I've grown in the Lord, And I want to help somebody else to grow in the Lord. I want the next generation to do some of the things that I've done. Let me tell you, if you're an older person in the congregation, the young people are being told all sorts of horrific lies, the likes of which are barely believable. And they think it's true, and most of it comes through their cell phone. Okay? And here's what they do. There's websites where they literally, this is where they're going for wisdom. They're doing this number, and they're reading these little kitschy phrases from Instagram about life, and they're thinking, whoa, that's true. And they have no one to set them straight, and they can't pay attention for more than 15 minutes. And yet, no one is saying, let me help you along. Let me show you the right way to go. Let me show you how not to self-destruct, but to build a family that will bless this community. No one is taking them, no one is helping them, and then Goliath comes and they all run. And no one stands up for Christ. So will you disciple somebody is what I'm asking you to do. Will you look after them? Will you help them grow? But I'm not that spiritually minded. Well, you're definitely more spiritually minded than somebody here, probably. So take the risk. Say, I want to meet with you. I want to help you to grow in your faith. Let's consider another part of this principle. I said last week, if you remember, that sin is never a one-time deal. Sin always manages to ruin not just you, but somebody else. There's no way you can do a sin alone and think, I've gotten away with this will never hurt anybody. It always manages to find its way into your neighbor's yard. It always manages to hurt somebody else. Now, in the same way that sin does that, faith, when you invest in it, it does that too. It blesses somebody else. It will find a way to escape your life and to go and be beneficial to another person. And so you should follow the Lord, not even selfishly for your own sake, okay? But for your family's sake, for your friend's sake. Listen, follow the Lord so that their lives aren't ruined, so that they can be blessed by your faith, so that they can be blessed by your walk with the Lord. So that's our message. There's a real battle, but our faith preserves us. God will be with us. Our faith will grow and multiply, and we'll make it through the day of difficulty, or the days of difficulty. They just keep coming. What does God want us to get out of this message? The first thing that I want us to think about is just show up. That's what David did. Just showed up. And that's what we need to do. It is tedious. It is difficult to continue to keep your eyes on the Lord. Let's just be honest. There are so many more things that are more entertaining. Keep focused. Just continue to show up. The Bible uses the word remain. Remain in Christ, okay? Remain in Him. Don't lose sight. And God will preserve you in battle. God will preserve you if you will not take your eyes off Him. And that means doing things, mundane things, like reading your Bible every day, praying every day, going to church on Sundays. These are the sort of things that some days it's great, and other days it's a dud. But it doesn't matter. You need to keep your eyes on the Lord, or you'll drift away. Stay focused. Verse in the Bible, let us not give up meeting together as the habit of some, but let us encourage one another, and all the more as we see the day approaching. One way or another, we're going to see Christ. We're going to see Jesus, whether we believe in Him, disbelieve in Him. He is the Lord. There's no question about that. And we have to keep our eyes on the prize, so that we'll see Him. The second thing. Actually, I have a verse here. It's Hebrews 10:36, and I have a little story with this verse. The things are tough, right? Things are difficult, and how do we persevere through them. Hebrews 10:36. It's page 1209. You have need of preservation, or you need to preserve, so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what is promised. You know, that verse is so different than the way we talk about Christianity. It's like this one-time event, you know. You get saved when you're 12, and you don't think about it until then. This says you haven't yet received what is promised, and you need to persevere. You need to keep your eye on the Lord. That verse was the verse that the Lord gave me when Noah passed away. And I said, why is there any use left to life? And God said, don't throw away your hope, but persevere. There is a reward. And so perhaps you've lost hope, you've lost heart, you're fatigued, you're tired. Let me tell you, there is a reward.